Lesson 6 of Module 1 will focus on Latin verbs, both regular and irregular in the present system. We begin by looking at the regular verb chart for active voice verb inflections. You'll need to have a copy of this for yourself and your own notes. Either get a blank copy from the link that precedes this video and copy down the information that you see on this chart, or you can go to the resources folder and print a copy of the completed chart for yourself. Do that now before you move forward. There's a lot of information on a verb chart, but for right now, I want to focus on the inflections. An inflection on a verb tells us three pieces of information. What the subject of the verb is, that's person in grammatical terms, what the tense of the verb is, and also what the voice of the verb is. Voice is something that we will be learning about later on this year. Now let's make sure we understand the grammatical concept person and number and the pronoun subject that is associated with it. Person and number is a grammatical terminology that's used to discuss who is speaking or what the subject is. First person, second person, and third person are the different persons, and they come in both singular and plural forms. Pronouns are associated with each person. First person singular is I, second person singular you, and third person singular is he, she, or it. The first person plural pronoun is we, the second person plural pronoun is you, and the third person plural pronoun is they. If you do not know these, please make sure to write them down somewhere on your verb chart. In Latin, the pronoun subject, or person and number, is equal to an inflection. The pronoun I, for example, if you look at your chart, uses the ending O or M. So O or M represents I. You is represented by the Latin inflection S. He, she, and it is represented by the Latin inflection T. The pronoun subject we is represented by the Latin inflection mus, M-U-S. You plural is represented by the Latin inflection tis, or T-I-S. And finally, the pronoun they is represented by the Latin inflection nt. If you look at your chart, you'll notice these endings on all or almost all of the inflections that are on the chart. Now let's move on to review verb tense. There are a total of 6 tenses on your verb chart, but we are going to focus only on 3, the present system tenses, which start with the present tense. Each tense is represented by its own inflections. Present tense are OM, ST, MUS, TIS, and NT. The imperfect tense inflections, you should notice, all start with the letters BA, ba, but use the same inflection to represent a subject. There are 2 sets of future tense endings. The first one, bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitis, and bunt, we use only on first and second conjugation verbs. The second set of future tense endings, ace, et, amus, atis, and ent, appear only on third conjugation verbs. When you are able to recognize the tense of a verb and what subject the inflection represents, that knowledge gives you great power to be able to read any Latin verb. Take, for example, delebit, which is from the verb deleo, delera, delewi, deletum, which means to destroy. The bit tells me that my verb is in the future tense, and the T says that my subject is he. So that means I can translate it as he will destroy. Now look at the verb cesamos, from ceso, cesara, cesawi, cesatum, which means to stop. The mus tells me that the subject is we. It also tells me that the verb is in the present tense. So when I translate the verb into English, I will translate it as we stop, or we are stopping. Now let's take a look at this verb, wiwebant, from wiwo, wiwera, wixi, wictum. The bant tells me that my verb is in the imperfect tense, while the nt tells me that the subject is they. This means I can translate it as they lived, they were living, or they used to live. In the next part of the lesson, we will be reviewing infinitives and all the information that they tell us and what we are able to do with them. But before you move on to that, answer a few questions about the things we have talked about in this part of the lesson.